Hey, what's up, everybody? Listen, welcome to Crown Midweek this week. Do me a favor, real quick, before we get started. Do me a favor. If you could go ahead and hit the like, if you could go ahead and hit the share. And the reason for that is you got a lot of family, you got a lot of friends that may not be following Crown Church, that may not be following Crown ORL. And the only way they'll know that Crown Midweek is on is if you go ahead and send them that share, if you go ahead and send them that notification. So go ahead and do us this favor. Go ahead and hit like, go ahead and hit share, and share it with your family, share it with your loved ones. We are looking forward to this conversation tonight. We are looking forward to this conversation. What I want to do today is I want to talk about, as we've been in relationships, I want to talk about why people are still single, Go ahead and hit share. Go ahead and hit like from wherever you are. And for those that may be on a different platform, share the link to a family and friends by sending them a text message. But wherever you are, thank you so much. I'll go ahead and give everybody a moment to go ahead and come in, because I want to have this conversation as we've been in relationships, and we've been talking about relationships. We've covered a number of topics, and I wanted to touch on this. I thought I was going to get to it at another time, but now's the right time while we're in this series. And while we've been talking about relationship, while we're in so-called the love month, want to go ahead and get this subject out there. So thank you so much for tuning in, wherever you may be tuning in, and want to go ahead and lay a couple of foundational things, lay a couple of groundworks. And if you are tuning in, if you are watching, just go ahead and make sure you drop your name in the chat. Go ahead and let everybody know you're here, and we'll go ahead and get started that way. But a couple of things I wanted to do real quick is I want to lay down this foundation real quick as it pertains to singles, like why people are still single. And we're going to talk about that tonight. Why people are still single. That's extremely important. Now, let me go ahead and lay a couple of foundational things down to start off. Number one, being single is not a curse. All right, come on, somebody. Being single is not a curse. So if you are single, you are not cursed. I know sometimes it feels like, ooh, they're single? What's wrong with them? Oh, I feel bad for them. Listen, being single is not a curse. There is nothing wrong with being single. So if you are single, listen, appreciate it, love where you are. So there is nothing wrong with being single. Being single is not a curse. The other thing is this: marriage is not a prerequisite to get purpose accomplished. Marriage is not a prerequisite to get purpose accomplished. You don't need to get married to get accomplished what it is that God created you to do. Now, if you get married, whatever it is that God created you to do, you'll have companionship along the way, and you'll have agreement. You'll have another person there working with you, but it is not a prerequisite to get God's plan for your life accomplished. Because sometimes we feel like if we are not in a relationship, if we are not married, we are living beneath God's best for our life. We're living beneath God's standard. And that couldn't be far from the truth. Like, listen, that is not a prerequisite at all. That is not a prerequisite. And you need to understand that it is not a prerequisite for you to get God's purpose accomplished. The other thing is this: marriage is not a prerequisite for you to be happy or fulfilled. Marriage is not a prerequisite for you to be happy or for you to be filled. You can move on with your life and not be married and still get everything that God has for you and enjoy life. It's a beautiful life out here. There's a lot of things to be experienced. There's a lot of places to be explored. And you don't have to be married to be happy. You don't have to be married to be fulfilled. So that's important to understand. As a matter of fact, let me give you a list real quick. I'm going to give you a list. 10 advantages of being single. Listen, if you're on this, go ahead and share it to somebody. Go ahead and somebody who's single or somebody who's dating, somebody who's in a relationship. Even married people need to hear some of this, because some of these reasons that I'm going to share today are reasons why people end up single again. So it's not just why people are still single, but it's also a reason why people end up single as well from these reasons. So go ahead and send this to someone that you think will be benefit from this chat, benefit from this conversation. Let me give you a list real quick. 10 advantages of being single. Number one, when you are single, if you're single, you control your time. You control your time if you're single. The second thing is you unanimously decide your friends. You unanimously decide your friends. When you are in a relationship, they get to chime in. Oh, I don't like this friend. I don't like that friend, that type of stuff. But when you are single, you unanimously decide who your friends or associations are. Another thing is you manage your space. You manage your space. You manage your life's plan as it relates to your purpose. You manage that life's plan. You manage your values and your priorities. When you are single, when you're not in a relationship, that is your decision. That is your choice. You manage that. You manage your development, which means you control the pace of the speed of your social development, of your intellectual development. You control the speed of that. Sometimes people are in relationships and the person that they're with try to force them to be someone that they are not, or try to force them to get into something prematurely, all because of the pressures of the relationship. But when you are single, one of the advantages is you get to dictate and control the pace of that development. The other thing is you manage your relationships, your business relationships, your social relationships, your family. You manage that. No one else can intrude on those relationships. You manage your body, right? Now, don't let me get Bible on you. When you get married, brothers or sisters, according to the word of God, your body don't belong to you anymore. Yeah, I said that. Your body don't belong to you anymore. It doesn't mean that if you are in a marriage, that means that the person may disrespect your body or violate you in any way. That's not what it is saying. But what it is saying is, hey, keep in mind that you shouldn't deny your wife, brothers. If your wife is saying, hey, I need some, satisfaction up in here, you shouldn't deny her if it's not that time, or if there's not a health situation that's hindering you. At the same time, sisters, you shouldn't deny the brother either. Let the church say amen. So, which means that when you are single, that is your determination. It don't mean you out here wild and reckless, but it is saying from the standpoint that claim to your body is not there. At the same time, you manage your money, or you should manage your money. You should manage your investments if you are single. I don't subscribe to the joint account before you get married. I don't subscribe to that. Now, you want to help each other? Sure, go ahead and help each other. But I don't subscribe to the joint account if you're not married to somebody, because if it doesn't work out, it's complicated trying to get someone off of your bank account. You do know the bank need a second signature, right? Okay, I'm just saying. So you don't put people on your investments if you are not tied to them long term. And then you manage your spiritual life. You manage your spiritual life. If you are in a relationship and you are married and you feel the Lord calling you to go on a fast and all that stuff, you got to make sure you're in agreement with your spouse. You don't just go on a 40-day fast and your spouse is supposed to look at you as if like, what are they supposed to do? No, there has to be agreement. So your spiritual growth and development is tied to someone as well. This is why Paul says in 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 28, but if you do get married, it is not a sin. Now, there are some situations going on back then that made being in a relationship very difficult. So Paul is talking to them and he's saying, but if you do get married, it is not a sin. And if a young woman gets married, it is not a sin. However, those who get married at this time, this is Paul talking during his time, and I would say, this is still relevant to today. Those who get married at this time will have troubles. And I am trying to spare you those problems. Somebody type in the chat, you don't want these problems. You do not want these problems, because one thing about marriage, one thing about relationships, marriages are hard. Come on, somebody, let the married people go ahead and hit like, hit chime. on this chat, relationships are hard and you don't want these problems. Somebody type that in the chat. Relationships are hard and you don't want these problems. At the same time, then and now, it is beautiful, but it is work. Marriage is beautiful. Marriage is beautiful. I can't complain. I love the fact that I'm married to my wife. I love everything about the journey. It is work. It is work because anything worth having is worth working for. So it is work, but it is beautiful. So those are some of the advantages of being single. Now, let me say this as well for my single people, just in case you're waiting for God to give you your husband. All right, I'm going to get in your business. Some people are waiting for God to give them their husband. God does not give you your spouse. God does not pick your spouse for you. I'm going to let that simmer a little bit. God does not pick your spouse for you. God does not pick your spouse for you. But what God does give you is he gives you prospects to pick from. God does not pick your spouse for you, but he does give you prospects to pick from. And it is your responsibility, watch this now, to investigate the potential of the prospects. It is your responsibility to investigate the potential of the prospect. God does not pick prospects for you. He does not pick the candidate for you. He gives you prospect, but you still got to investigate that prospect. Now, hear me. Do not marry a prospect. Do not marry. It's okay to date them. It's okay to investigate their potential. And that's the problem. A lot of people see something promising in the prospect, but you don't investigate it thoroughly. You don't do your due diligence. It's like buying a house. It looks good on the outside, but it got some foundational problems. It looks good on the outside, but the studs behind the wall are rotting. You got termites behind the wall, but you like the house. It looked good until you buy it. And this is why no one who thoroughly understands purchasing of real estate does it without an inspection. Listen, you need to have an inspection of some people. You don't just jump into a relationship. So you want to make sure those things are in place. And now watch this now. With all of that information, with all of the information and technology that we have today, with all of the gadgets, with all of the knowledge that we have, why are people still single? Why are people still single with all of that knowledge, with all of that information, with everything that we have? Why are people still single? Now, I believe there are about 4 reasons that people are still single, and I want to talk through that with you real quick. There's about 4 reasons that people are still single. Number 1, if you're writing this down, this is my personal assessment, my personal opinion of what I've observed. I observe a lot. I just don't say much when I speak when it's time to speak. And so I want to speak and drop in on this subject because maybe it might add value to someone. Maybe it might help someone and bless someone. This is why I believe people are still single. All right. Do me a favor real quick. Go ahead and hit share. To all the singles that may be listening to this, go ahead and hit share. Go ahead and send this to someone and they might want to participate on this conversation. Why people are still single or why people end up single again. Because there's some people that may be listening to this right now. You're not single, but based on one of these 4, you may end up single again. So it's extremely important to understand that. So here's a couple of things. Number 1, why people are still single. One of the number 1 reasons people are single is because of choice. Write that down. Choice. Somebody put that in the chat. Choice. Choice is one of the reasons that people are still single. It is your two things. Based on this choice, it goes 2 ways. Either it's personal choice. Write that down. Personal choice. You're single by personal choice. You choose to be single. There's nothing wrong with you. You just choose to be single. And there's nothing wrong with that. That is your choice. There's nothing wrong with that. Some of that personal choice can include you choose education over dating. You have a degree that you're pursuing. Some people have a degree that they're pursuing and they don't want to be distracted with dating. They don't want to be distracted getting involved with another person. They don't want to be distracted with that. So that is their choice, their personal choice to choose their education over dating. That is their personal choice to choose their career over being in a commitment. Some people choose pursuing the bag over having a boo because they feel like another body may be a distraction. So they're single by choice. That's the first group, single by choice. Nothing's wrong with you. You choose to be single. But there's another group in that same choice category, and that are those that are single because you just got poor choice. You just poor choices. Poor choices. That means the people you pick and the prospects that you date, they just don't pan out for whatever reason. Your means of vetting, your means of assessing, you just don't pick properly. Some people are single, they just don't know how to pick. They just can't pick properly. And over time, you get discouraged. Over time, you get disappointed. Over time, you give up because you're like, man, I don't want to get it wrong again. I don't want to get it wrong again. Whatever tools you have afforded to you is poor choices. And there are people in relationships that are making poor choices. The choices that you're making are not pro the relationship. The choices that you may currently be making are choices that are selfish, are choices that are self-serving and self-gratifying. And you got to be careful because if you stay along the path of those types of choices, you might find yourself by yourself. So you want to be careful with that. You want to make sure that you make the right choices. If you're single, make the right choices if you do decide to move into a relationship. But if you choose not to, that's your prerogative as well. The second group is those that are single because of circumstances. Somebody jot that down, circumstances. You're single because of circumstances. Listen, if a catastrophe happens and a large portion of the male population disappears, the likelihood of women being single will increase. And when we look at our society, the mortality rate of men is men are passing away at a larger rate than women. Men are incarcerated at a larger rate than women. That is outside of the women's control. And same thing with men. Circumstances could keep you, things that are just outside of your control can keep a person in that single life. They may desire to be in a relationship, but the circumstances that are outside of their control is keeping them single. Whether caring for a parent, whether it's something in their health, whether it's a crisis that they have to attend to, whether they have to step in for family and friends, they have to intervene in certain things that doesn't afford them the opportunity to be in a relationships. All of the things which is out of their control causes them to still be single. So circumstances is a legitimate reason why people are still single. Things that just are outside of their control. So just keep that in mind. And what for those that are single, that desire to be in a relationship, my recommendation to you is that you pray as much as you can against unfavorable circumstances. Pray against unfavorable circumstances that will withhold you from being in a position to be in a relationship. Now, listen, it's okay to pray for your spouse. It's not okay to pray for somebody else's spouse. Let me just go ahead and put that out there. It's okay to pray for your spouse, whoever they may be. It's not okay to start naming people by name. We can't do that. But it's okay to say, God, if it is in your will, I do desire to get married. Wherever that person or that potential person may be, or that potential prospect may be that I'm going to cross paths with, Just protect them right now, cover them right now, keep them right now. It is perfectly fine to pray in that manner. It is not okay to start asking God to get a person out of a marriage to give them to you because you feel like you could treat them better than the other person. No, that ain't gonna work. That's not gonna work. That's not gonna work. So you want to make sure that if it's a circumstantial situation, that you take it to God in prayer. Number three. This one's a very big one. One of the reasons that people are still single is because of the culture. The culture is one of the reasons why people are still single. Go ahead and put that in the chat. Culture, right? Now, most people, not you, but most people have a herd mindset. Most people have a herd mindset. So whatever the culture is doing and whatever is in vogue, whatever's the latest fad, whatever's in style, that's what they're going to do. Whatever the latest trend is, that's what they're going to do. There's people that wait for their marching orders from the culture. They wait for society to tell them how to function, how to move forward. And so however society flow, that's how they're going to flow, which means the culture, we have to understand when we look at the current context, the culture is not pro-commitment. The culture is not pro-commitment. The culture is pro-do whatever you want to do. The culture is pro-be with whoever you want to be with. That's the culture. That's the current culture right now. The culture is pro-switch out if you're not happy. We live in a return society. If you don't like it, return for full refund. And we bring that mindset into our relationships. We bring that mindset into people, and it affects people as well, where it's like, oh, you don't make me happy anymore, so I'm gonna switch you out. This person I think I could be more happy with this person, so I'm gonna switch out. Or you know what? I'm not gonna commit to anything. That's the culture. So a lot of people are single because the culture is pro-single. Don't commit to anyone. Don't commit to anything. Keep your options open. So a lot of people are victims of the circumstances, and a lot of people have succumbed to the culture, which means the culture has told you don't commit to anything. Don't stay long-term in anything. Why would you do that? Times even have changed with the length of time people keep careers. People on average keep careers no more than 2 to 3 years. They're switching out into the next thing. So that mindset can move into our relationships. So one of the other reasons that people are still single is because they're following the culture. And if you follow this current culture, it's going to lead you to destruction. Because the road of this culture is very broad. It makes space. It makes way for everyone. Listen, on the road, off the cliff, they want to make sure that you got as much room as possible because they know you're about to drive off the cliff. But that narrow path is hard to find, and I encourage you to look for it because few will find it. But that is the path that leads to life, is that narrow path. And then the last reason why I believe people are still single is character. Character. This one's very important. One of the main reasons people are single is because of their character. Their character. Somebody put character down. Their character. If you agree, go ahead and hit like. You know I'm telling the truth. There are people that are still single because of their character. And the thing that we have to understand is that, have you ever wondered why the alphabets are called characters? The reason the alphabet are called characters is because they never change. 30 years ago, A is still A, Z is still Z, and all the letters in between are still the same letters in between. That's character. It doesn't change. It's consistent. And a lot of time, people end up single because they are inconsistent in their character. And when you're inconsistent in your character, this is what happened. Inconsistent people usually end up isolated. Inconsistent people usually end up isolated. People don't have time to wait for you to be you. People don't have time. Most people won't wait for you to be honest with them. Most people won't wait for you to be straight up with them. And what I've observed is that because of character, a lot of people end up by themselves because they refuse to grow. They refuse to develop. And my question is this, listen, character is an attractive quality. People are attracted to people with character because they know they can trust you. Listen, character is one of those prerequisites to build trust because you want to be consistent enough to establish a rapport and to establish a rhythm and to establish a relationship with people. And if you don't have character, how can someone commit to you for the long haul? Watch this now. Do you keep your word? That's a question. If you are single, do you keep your word? Are you punctual with your time? Are you intentional with your time? Are you integrous? Hear me, singles. Are you integrous? Do you have integrity? All of that stems to your character. Are you dependable? Are you dependable? Or are you someone that switches out? When we are inconsistent in our character, it starts sending off red flags to potential prospects that may be investigating us. Listen, insecurity is a real thing. Insecurity is a real thing. And the slightest trigger of inconsistency triggers insecurity. Somebody write that down. Inconsistency triggers insecurity. Yeah. Inconsistency triggers insecurity. So if you're dealing with someone that has trust issues to start with, or they can get insecure about certain things, and you are inconsistent in your character, that's going to trigger insecurity in them. And when you trigger insecurity in someone, you're going to have to address it. You're going to have to reassure them. You're going to have to establish consistency to deactivate or turn off or get rid of that insecurity altogether in order for them to feel comfortable to move forward with you. And what happens with a lot of people is because of the culture, because of hype, because of fear of embarrassment, you've noticed a pattern of inconsistency. You've noticed a pattern of inconsistency that has caused insecurity, that has sent a lot of red flags up, but you don't ask questions because you're too far into it. So you walk down an aisle, you stand at an aisle knowing that there are some insecurities in you that are undealt with, and you take that into the marriage. You take that into the relationship. And I told everyone before, and I've shared this often, marriage is a magnifier. It makes bigger what's already there. And so you bring it in, and now it magnifies it, thinking that the marriage can fix it. And the marriage is not going to fix it. The marriage is not going to solve it. As a matter of fact, it accelerates it and it makes it bigger. And now you have a problem on your hand. So character is one of the number one reasons. I'm going to give you, listen, this is free game. This is free game. The more you work on yourself, the easier it's going to be to find a companion. The more you work on yourself. I don't mean go in isolation or silo somewhere. But what I mean is you're constantly working on being a better person, adding value. You're constantly adding value. That is attractive. People will notice you. More than that, people won't just notice you. People will start referring you. People will start putting your name out there. People will start referencing. People will want good for you because they know you're a good person, you're stand up, and they want you to win. When your character is in place, when your character is jacked up, people are hoping that you don't go jack somebody else's child up. Yeah, I said it. So that is extremely important. I'll say this again. God does not give you prospects. God does not pick your spouse for you. God does not give you the person to be with, but God gives you prospects rather. Let me say that. God does not pick the person for you to be with, but God gives you prospects. So if you're going to choose, make sure you choose wisely. Make sure you choose wisely. Don't choose anyone that is only satisfied with you to be a side piece. Because if they got to hide you, they can't have you. And if she can't claim you, she can't call you, brothers. Ladies, if he has to hide you, he can't have you. And brothers, if she can't claim you or won't claim you, then tell her don't call you. Because you should treat yourself as top shelf. You should treat yourself with worth. That's why people are still single. Number one, they're single because of a personal choice or poor choices. Two, they're single because of the circumstances. Or three, they're single because of the culture. And number four, they're single because of character. So those are extremely, extremely important to know as you. Now, those are just my opinion. That's from my observation. I'm sure there's maybe more reasons, but I wanted to shrink and reduce that list to something that is worth going back and dissecting and looking into a little bit more. Thank you so much for taking time out to being on this midweek portion of Crown with us. On the bottom of the screen, there's several ways that you can continue to support what we're doing and transforming followers into leaders. If you are seeing this broadcast at a later time, go ahead and leave in the chat reasons why you think people are still single. Go ahead and be respectful at the same time. If you're in the chat, make sure you're respectful. Add value to this conversation, because someone may read the comments and someone may truly be blessed by that. At the same time, go ahead and share this with someone that you know it will also add value to as well. Let me go ahead and say this. Thank you so much for any past, any present, or any future giving or gifts that you are led to give. We truly appreciate it, and we are excited for what God is doing and what he's going to continue to do through Crown Orlando. So we are excited for that. So we want to make sure that you continue to tune in at this time every week. Make sure you tune in with us. Now, as we always do, make sure that all that you do is for his glory and his glory alone. Be blessed and have a great day.